The alarm blared across the gory command ship, its harsh tone cutting through the usual quiet hum of machinery. Admiral Vexatrol's 4 eyes blinked rapidly as he rushed to the central control room. His scaled skin shimmered under the blue emergency lights. The junior officers around him moved with practiced efficiency, but he could sense their fear. In 500 years, no alert of this kind had ever sounded in this sector. "Report," Vexatrol demanded, his voice steady despite the chaos. A sensor officer looked up from her station. "Unknown vessel, Admiral. It appeared at the edge of the system without warning. No signs of conventional propulsion activation. It seems to have created its own entry point." Vexatrol frowned. That was impossible. No species in the known galaxy besides the Gory had mastered controlled space folding, and even their technology required massive gateway structures. "Show me," he ordered. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a massive ship unlike any in the Gory records. It was sleek yet sturdy with visible weapon ports along its hull. The design was completely foreign, lacking the typical flowing lines of Gory vessels or the crystal structures of the Valori. This was something new. "They're broadcasting a message, Admiral. Multiple formats, all frequencies." Vexatrol hesitated. The Gory Confederacy had a simple protocol for first contact. Assess, then either subjugate or eliminate. No exceptions in 5 centuries. But something about this vessel made his inner membranes tighten with caution. "Let me hear it." The speakers crackled before a clear voice filled the command room. "This is Captain Frank Miller of the United Earth Alliance vessel USS Defiant. We come in peace, seeking diplomatic relations with intelligent life forms in this region of space. Please respond. Earth." The word meant nothing to Vexatrol or his crew. A new species then, and one foolish enough to announce itself with a single ship. But the scanner readings troubled him. The energy signatures from the vessel suggested technology that should be beyond the capabilities of any non-Gory civilization. "Tactical assessment," Vexatrol demanded. The weapons officer responded immediately. "Their shields appear active but not at full power. Weapon systems are powered down but ready for quick activation. They have made no aggressive moves." Following protocol, Vexatrol made his decision. "Fire a warning shot, low power targeting their communication array. Let's see how they respond." Aboard the USS Defiant, Captain Frank Miller stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the alien vessel on the main view screen. After decades of searching, humanity had finally made contact with an advanced alien civilization. His heart beat faster at the thought, though his face remained calm. The crew around him worked quietly, each trained professional focused on their tasks. "Any response to our broadcast, Lieutenant Davis?" Miller asked. Communications Officer Nicole Davis shook her head, her dark hair tied back in a neat bun. "Nothing yet, Captain. They're receiving it, but..." A sudden jolt rocked the ship, throwing several crew members forward. Warning lights flashed across every console. "We've been hit," Lieutenant Sam Wright shouted from the tactical station. "Direct hit to our main communication array. Minimal damage, but it was definitely a weapons discharge." Miller's expression hardened. He had hoped for peaceful first contact, but Earth's history had taught humanity to prepare for the worst. "Shields to full power. Bring weapon systems online, but do not target yet." Chief Engineer Olivia Garcia's voice came through the intercom. "Communication array damaged but still functional at 60% capacity, Captain. Was that a warning shot?" "Appears so," Miller replied, his mind racing through options. Humanity had survived centuries of conflict on Earth before finally uniting. The colonial wars had forged their military doctrine into something unique, adaptable, unpredictable, and startlingly effective. But Miller had hoped not to need those skills here. "Lieutenant Davis, send another message. Make it clear, we mean no harm but will defend ourselves if attacked again." "Captain," Science Officer Alan Ross interrupted, his eyes fixed on his scanner. "I'm detecting power buildups in what appear to be their weapon systems. Multiple targeting systems have locked onto us." Miller made a quick decision. "Lieutenant Wright, target their weapon systems only. Minimal force, precision strikes." "Aye, Captain." On the Gory command ship, Vexitral watched with growing concern as the human vessel's response came not as a retreat or surrender, but as a shift in shield configuration. Their energy readings changed in ways his tactical officers couldn't interpret. "They're arming weapons," his second-in-command reported, surprise evident in his voice. Vexitral felt a flicker of respect. Most species cowered when faced with gory power. "Target their primary systems, full power this time, let's show them." Before he could finish, the ship rocked violently. Consoles exploded in showers of sparks, and crew members were thrown from their seats. "Multiple hits," someone shouted. "Precision strikes to our main weapon ports and sensor arrays." Vexitral couldn't believe it. The human ship had fired with perfect accuracy, targeting only their offensive capabilities while leaving everything else untouched. It was a level of surgical precision in combat that the Gory had never encountered. "Return fire. All functional. Weapons." The space between the two ships lit up as energy beams crossed the void. The human vessel moved with surprising speed, evading many of the Gory shots while maintaining its strategic firing pattern. On the Defiant, Miller gripped his chair as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. "Shields holding at 78%, Captain," Wright reported. "Their targeting systems are impressive, but their attack pattern is predictable." Miller nodded. "Continue evasive maneuvers. Pattern Delta. Target their engines. I want to disable, not destroy." The battle continued for several minutes with the Defiant dancing around the larger Gory vessel, striking with precision while avoiding the worst of the alien firepower. "Captain, 2 more ships approaching," Ross called out. "Similar design to the first. They'll be in weapons range in 3 minutes." Miller knew they couldn't take on 3 advanced alien warships, not on their first mission into deep space. "Lieutenant, Wright, prepare a full spread of torpedoes. Target the first ship's propulsion and weapons only." "Torpedoes ready, sir." "Fire." 6 bright streaks shot toward the Gory command ship. The alien vessel attempted evasive action, but the torpedoes adjusted their course with an intelligence that shocked the Gory defenders. On his damaged bridge, Admiral Vexitral watched in horror as multiple explosions rippled across his ship's hull, precisely crippling their ability to fight or pursue. "How is this possible?" he hissed as systems failed around him. "They're using inferior technology, yet their tactical approach is insane," his second-in-command finished. "They're allowing damage to non-critical systems to gain tactical advantage. No rational species fights this way." As the 2 additional Gory ships approached, Miller made another quick decision. "We've made our point. Set course for the edge of the system. Maximum speed." The Defiant turned and accelerated away from the battle, leaving behind a damaged Gory warship and a very confused alien commander. As they reached safety, Miller looked around at his crew. "Send a message to Earth. Let Admiral Turner know we've made first contact, but it wasn't the peaceful meeting we hoped for. And tell him." Miller paused, looking back at the view screen where the alien system was now just a distant point of light. "Tell him we may have just started a war." In the silence that followed, the crew of the Defiant realized that humanity's first step into the wider galaxy had forever changed the course of their species, and perhaps the fate of many others they had yet to meet. News of the battle spread quickly through the Gory Confederacy's vast communication network. The impossible had happened. An unknown species using what should have been inferior technology had damaged 3 Gory warships and escaped. War Commander Zexnar paced the marble floor of the high command chamber, his clawed feet clicking with each angry step. The 5 other members of the high command watched him in silence, their multiple eyes blinking in different patterns that revealed their varying states of alarm. "This is unprecedented," Zexnar finally said, stopping to face the holographic display showing the damaged Gory ships. "Admiral Vexitral reports that these humans fought in a manner he describes as tactical insanity." Intelligence Director Mevpax leaned forward, her scaled skin reflecting the blue light of the chamber. "Explain this term." "They deliberately allowed damage to their vessel to create openings for attacks. They used minimal force when they could have destroyed our ships. Their maneuvers ignored standard combat logic." Zexnar's voice carried a note of reluctant respect. 3 of our elite ships were disabled by a single vessel. The chamber fell silent again as the implications sank in. For 5 centuries, the Gori had encountered no serious military challenge. Their conquest of the Orion Arm had been methodical and absolute. "We must deploy the Annihilation Fleet," Zexnar continued. "These humans must be found and eliminated before they can return with more ships." Mevpax raised a hand in objection. "I advise caution. We know nothing about these humans or their homeworld. This could be a scout ship. There could be many more." Zexnar sneered. "All the more reason to strike now, before they can marshal their forces." After lengthy debate, the High Command reached its decision. 12 battlecruisers would be deployed to the Kepler system to hunt down the human ship and gather intelligence about this new threat. Far from the Gori homeworld, in a distant corner of the Kepler system, the USS Defiant drifted behind a large asteroid. The ship's external lights were dimmed, and all non-essential systems were powered down to minimize their detection signature. Inside the engine room, Chief Engineer Olivia Garcia worked tirelessly to repair the damage from the battle. Her hands moved quickly over the exposed circuits of a damaged relay, her face streaked with grease and sweat. "How much longer, Garcia?" Captain Miller asked, entering the cramped space. Garcia didn't look up from her work. "Another 4 hours for the main systems, Captain. The communication array took the worst hit. Those aliens knew exactly where to strike." Miller nodded, his face grim. "That's what worries me. They seem to know our weaknesses immediately." "Well, they don't know humans very well," Garcia replied with a small smile. "We're pretty good at turning weaknesses into strengths." On the, bridge, Science Officer Alan Ross studied the data they had collected during the brief but intense battle with the Gori ships. Lieutenant Sam Wright stood beside him. Both men focused on the tactical display. "Their weapons technology is about 20 years ahead of ours," Ross said, pointing to a series of energy readings. "But their tactical systems are strange." "Strange how?" Wright asked. "Rigid, predictable. They have superior firepower but use it in fixed patterns. It's like they've never had to adapt during battle before." Wright considered this. "So they've never faced an enemy who could challenge them." "Exactly. And that might be our only advantage." The ship's intercom buzzed. "Captain, to the bridge. We're receiving a transmission." Miller hurried to the bridge, where Communications Officer Nicole Davis was focused intently on her console. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "It's not from the Gori, sir. The signature is completely different. It's coming from somewhere in the system, heavily encrypted." "Can you decode it?" Davis nodded. "Working on it now. It's text only, sir." Her eyes widened as the message appeared on her screen. "Sir, you need to see this." Miller leaned over her shoulder to read the message. "They fear what they do not understand, and humans, we have observed, are beyond their understanding. We can help each other. Reply on this frequency if you seek allies against the Gori oppressors." "Could be a trap," Wright suggested from his station. Miller straightened, considering their options. "Or it could be exactly what we need right now. Lieutenant Davis, can you trace the origin?" "Yes, sir. It's coming from a small moon orbiting the 4th planet. Looks like some kind of mining operation." Miller made his decision. "Prepare a reply. Tell them we're interested but cautious. Ask for proof of their intentions." While the Defiant's crew worked to establish contact with their mysterious potential ally on the mining moon of Kepler-4, a slender alien named Tekla hurried through narrow tunnels deep beneath the surface. Her pale blue skin was covered in a fine layer of rock dust, a necessity to hide her movements from the Gori overseers. She reached a hidden chamber where several other members of her species, the Valori, huddled around a makeshift communication device. "Did they respond?" Tekla asked, her large eyes reflecting the dim light. One of the others nodded. "They are cautious but willing to talk. They ask for proof we are not allied with the Gori." Tekla thought for a moment. "Send them the location of the Gori sensor grid. If they can disable it, the Gori fleet will be blind when they arrive." "And they will arrive," another Valori added grimly. "The Gori never ignore a challenge." Back on the Defiant, Miller gathered his senior officers to discuss the information they had received from the Valori. According to our new friends, Miller began, pointing to a star map, this entire system is ringed with sensor platforms. That's how they detected us so quickly when we arrived. The Valori have given us the locations and access codes to disable them temporarily. Can we trust this information? Wright asked. Ross nodded. The technical data matches what we observed, and the Valori have no reason to help the Gori. According to what they've told us, they're essentially slaves. Miller looked at each of his officers. If we do this, we're making a clear decision to interfere in this conflict. Earth sent us to establish peaceful contact, not start a war. Garcia spoke up. With respect, Captain, I think that decision was made for us when they fired on us without provocation. There were nods around the table. Miller took a deep breath. All right. Lieutenant Wright, prepare a stealth approach to the nearest sensor platform. We'll use a shuttle to avoid risking the Defiant. I should go, Wright volunteered. I have the most combat experience. I'll need you at tactical if things go wrong, Miller countered. I'll lead the shuttle mission myself. Hours later, Miller piloted the small shuttle toward the Gori sensor platform, a sleek, dark structure floating silently in space. Behind him, 2 crew members worked to prepare the equipment they would need to hack into the alien system. Approaching target, Miller said quietly, though there was no one to hear them in the vacuum of space. No signs of active defenses. Using the access codes provided by the Valori, they were able to dock with the platform and gain entry. The interior was cold and sterile, clearly not designed for regular visits from organic beings. While his team worked quickly to install a device that would feed false data to the Gori network, Miller explored the platform. In a central chamber, he found what appeared to be a star map of the entire sector. His eyes widened as he realized the scale of the Gori Confederacy. Dozens of star systems, hundreds of planets, all under their control. Captain, one of his team called. Device is installed. We should leave now. As they returned to the Defiant, Miller's mind was racing. This wasn't just about defending themselves anymore. If the Valori were telling the truth, the Gori had enslaved countless species across this sector of space. Humanity had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple first contact situation. When Miller returned to the Defiant, he found Lieutenant Davis waiting with urgent news. We've intercepted Gori communications, sir, she reported. They're sending 12 battle cruisers to this system. They'll arrive in less than 3 days. Miller's jaw set in determination. Send a message to the Valori. Tell them we need to meet in person as soon as possible. And prepare a transmission to Earth. Admiral Turner needs to know what we found here. As the message was sent, Miller looked out at the stars visible on the main view screen. Humanity had come seeking new friends among the stars. Instead, they had found a galaxy in chains, and perhaps their greatest test yet. The hidden asteroid base was cold and dimly lit, carved into the rock by generations of secret resistance fighters. Captain Frank Miller followed Tekla through narrow tunnels, ducking occasionally to avoid low-hanging pipes. Behind him walked Lieutenant Wright and Officer Patricia White, the ship's diplomatic specialist. They had left the Defiant hidden behind a larger asteroid with Garcia in temporary command. Many have not yet arrived, Tekla explained, her blue skin almost glowing in the darkness. Travel is difficult when the Gori watch everything. They entered a larger chamber where several aliens waited. Miller tried not to stare, but the diversity was stunning. Besides the slender blue-skinned Valori, there were stocky orange beings with 4 arms, tall insect-like creatures with compound eyes, floating jellyfish-like entities contained in personal atmosphere bubbles, and small furry humanoids with large eyes. These are representatives from 5 species enslaved by the Gori, Tekla said. Valori, Arctarians, Zenth, Folians, and Medusans. An Arctarian stepped forward, his 4 arms crossed in different patterns across his chest. So these are humans. Smaller than I expected for creatures who damaged 3 Gori warships. Miller smiled. We're full of surprises. Patricia White moved forward, her training in xenodiplomacy kicking in. We thank you for the risk you've taken in meeting with us. Our species is new to this region of space, and we have much to learn. A floating Folian drifted closer, tentacles rippling. Many have tried to fight the Gory. All have failed. Why would humans succeed where others have died? Because we're not trying to fight like the Gory, Lieutenant Wright answered. Our approach to warfare is different. We've observed this, Tekla said. Your ship allowed damage to itself to gain tactical advantage. This concept is alien to the Gory. Miller nodded. On our world, we had to learn adaptation. We don't have the strongest weapons or the toughest armor, but we've learned to use what we have in unexpected ways. The Zenth representative clicked its mandibles together. Words mean nothing. The Gory fleet approaches. 12 battlecruisers. Against one human ship, you will die, and any who helped you will be punished. Not if we work together, Miller said firmly. You have knowledge of Gory systems and technology. We have tactical approaches they've never encountered. Together, we might stand a chance. The alien delegates looked at each other skeptically. Centuries of oppression had taught them caution. The Medusan representative, a small furry being with sad eyes, spoke in a soft voice. Hope is dangerous. The Gory crush hope first, then bodies. Sometimes hope is all you need to start. White said gently, my people once faced enemies who seemed impossible to defeat, but we found ways. As the discussion continued, a young Valori rushed into the chamber. Tekla, we've intercepted Gory communications. The fleet has changed course. They're heading directly for the mining colony. Tekla's face fell. They suspect. We must evacuate immediately. How many people at the colony? Miller asked quickly. Nearly 4,000 workers. Mostly Valori, some Arctarians. Miller made a quick decision. We can't evacuate that many, but we can distract the Gory. Lieutenant Wright, contact the Defiant. Tell Garcia to prepare for emergency maneuvers. We're going to draw the Gory away from the colony. Captain, Wright objected. That's suicide. Against 12 battlecruisers. Not if we have help, Miller turned to the aliens. This is your chance. Help us fight back, or watch more of your people die. The delegates conferred quickly among themselves. Finally, Tekla stepped forward. The Valori will help. We have 3 cargo ships with minimal weapons, but they can fly. The Arctarian nodded, reluctantly. We have a mining vessel. It has drilling lasers that could be repurposed. One by one, the other representatives offered what little they had. None were warships, but together they might create enough confusion to matter. Miller smiled. Good. Now let's talk strategy. Back on the Defiant, Chief Engineer Garcia listened to Wright's transmission with growing concern. He wants us to do what? She asked, glancing at Science Officer Ross. Draw 12 Gory battlecruisers away from the mining colony, Wright's voice repeated over the comm. Captain says to prepare the ship for maximum maneuverability. We'll rendezvous at these. Coordinates in 2 hours. After the transmission ended, Ross looked at Garcia. Those are impossible odds. Garcia nodded grimly, which is exactly why the Gory won't expect us to attack. Get the ship ready. Meanwhile, in a different part of the asteroid base, Miller examined technical schematics that a Valori scientist named Kren had smuggled out of a Gory research facility. These were forbidden, Kren explained, his thin fingers tracing lines on the display. The Gory do not allow subject species to develop weapons technology. Miller studied the diagrams with interest. This looks like an energy-focusing system. More efficient than what we use. Kren nodded. The Gory fear what would happen if we combined our scientific knowledge. Each species has been kept isolated, forbidden from sharing advances. Until now, Miller said. As the makeshift fleet prepared for battle, the 12 Gory battlecruisers moved through space in perfect formation. On the lead ship, Fleet Commander Drez Kor reviewed the tactical display with confidence. His orders were clear. Find and destroy the human vessel, then punish any who had aided them. Approaching the mining colony, his second-in-command reported. Scans detect normal activity. Drez Kor narrowed his 4 eyes. 2 normal. Divide the fleet. 6 ships will continue to the colony. 6 will spread out to search nearby asteroid fields. Just as the gory fleet began to split, alarms sounded across the command ship. "Multiple vessels approaching at high speed," an officer shouted. "The human ship is among them." Drezkor couldn't believe the readings. "They're attacking us? With mining ships, this is madness." The small fleet of resistance vessels sped toward the gory battlecruisers, led by the Defiant. Miller stood on the bridge, hands gripping the captain's chair as Lieutenant Wright counted down. "Weapons range in 30 seconds, Captain." "Remember the plan," Miller said calmly. "We're not trying to win this fight. We just need to create enough confusion to get the colony ships away." The Defiant fired first, targeting the lead gory ship's sensor array with precision. The Arcturian mining vessel followed, its drilling lasers cutting into the armor of another battlecruiser. The 3 Valori cargo ships, piloted by volunteers, scattered among the gory formation, dropping makeshift explosive devices as they passed. Chaos erupted as the gory ships tried to target the smaller, faster vessels weaving between them. The gory combat doctrine relied on overwhelming force and coordinated attacks against predictable enemies. They had no protocols for this kind of asymmetric warfare. On the colony moon, evacuation ships began launching, using the battle as cover. Tekla coordinated from a small command center, directing civilian vessels toward a safe hyperspace point. Back in the battle, the Defiant took a direct hit that shook the entire ship. "Shields down to 40%, an officer reported. "Keep moving," Miller ordered. "Don't give them a stationary target." The small resistance fleet continued its hit-and-run attacks, never engaging directly but striking at vulnerable points identified by the Valori and Arcturian technical experts. One gory ship lost power to its main weapons. Another spun out of formation after its navigation system was damaged. "Colony report 60% evacuation complete," Communications Officer Davis announced. "They need another 10 minutes, Miller nodded. "We'll give them 15. Keep the gory focused on us." The battle raged on, with the resistance ships taking damage but refusing to retreat. The Defiant performed maneuvers that the gory tactical computers classified as irrational, making it difficult for them to predict the human ship's next move. Finally, Davis reported, "Colony evacuation complete, Captain." "Signal the retreat," Miller ordered. "All ships disengage and proceed to the rendezvous point." As the small fleet scattered, the gory ships gave chase, but their larger size made them less maneuverable in the asteroid field. One by one, the resistance ships slipped away, regrouping at a predetermined location deep in the system. When Miller arrived at the rendezvous point, he was met with cheers from the rescued colonists. For the first time in centuries, someone had directly challenged the gory and survived. Tekla approached him, her expression solemn. "What happens now, Captain Miller?" "The gory will hunt us across the sector." Miller looked around at the gathered aliens, seeing hope in their eyes for the first time. "Now we build an alliance, and we show the gory that the age of unopposed tyranny is over." In that moment, as humans and aliens stood together, the first true interspecies resistance was born, all because one human warship had entered the system. The gory high command chamber was silent except for the low hiss of War Commander Zexnar's breathing. The massive holographic display showed the damaged gory battlecruisers limping back to their repair stations. Intelligence Director Mevpax studied the battle records with growing concern while the other 4 members of the High Command shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Impossible," Zexnar finally said, slamming a clawed fist onto the table. 12 of our finest ships against 1 human vessel and a few mining craft. This defies all tactical models." Mevpax replayed a section of the battle focusing on the Defiant's movements. "They do not fight according to any known doctrine. Look here. They deliberately exposed their port side to draw fire away from this civilian transport. And here, they shut down their shields for 3.2 seconds to divert power to weapons, knowing our targeting computers would need to recalibrate. And the subject species," another commander added. "They fought alongside the humans. This has never happened before." Zexnar paced the chamber, his ceremonial armor clicking with each step. "We must crush this rebellion immediately. I propose deploying the Annihilation Fleet. Mevpax raised a hand in objection. The Annihilation Fleet has never been needed in our 5 centuries of rule. To deploy it now would show weakness. I recommend we study these humans further before committing our most powerful weapons. After hours of debate, the High Command reached a compromise. They would send envoys to other powerful species in the galactic community, warning them about the human threat while gathering a larger force to deal with the rebellion. In the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, the human and alien alliance worked quickly to establish a hidden base. Captain Miller had surrendered his quarters aboard the Defiant to serve as a makeshift medical facility for the wounded. He now stood in a large cavern carved into an asteroid, watching as Valori and Arctarian engineers installed equipment salvaged from the evacuation. "How bad is it?" he asked as Chief Engineer Garcia approached. Garcia wiped grease from her hands with a rag. "The Defiant took heavy damage, Captain. We can restore life support and basic propulsion within a week, but the weapon systems need parts we don't have. What about the alien technology? Can we adapt any of it?" Garcia nodded. "That's the good news. The Valori scientist Kren has some fascinating ideas. Their energy-focusing systems are more advanced than ours, and the Arctarians have metallurgy, techniques that could strengthen our hull." Miller looked around at the bustling activity in the cavern. More refugees arrived daily as word spread of the successful resistance against the Gori. What had started as a diplomatic mission had become something much more significant. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. Lieutenant Davis managed to get a transmission through the Gori communication blockade, Garcia replied. "Admiral Turner received our report. 5 more Earth ships are being prepared, but it will take at least 3 months for them to reach us." Miller frowned. "We need to hold out until then." Meanwhile, on the other side of the asteroid, Lieutenant Wright worked with Arctarian security experts to establish defensive perimeters. The stocky 4-armed aliens had experience in mining security, and their knowledge of explosive compounds proved valuable. "These sensor arrays will detect Gori scout ships up to 2 light minutes away," an Arctarian named Dorn explained, pointing to a diagram. "But we need more time to evacuate if they find us." Wright studied the plans. "What about these unused mining tunnels? Could we rig them with the explosive compounds you mentioned?" Dorn's orange skin wrinkled as he smiled. "You humans think differently. Yes, we could create collapsing tunnels to slow pursuers." In another section of the growing base, Science Officer Alan Ross worked alongside Valori and Zenth technicians, analyzing Gori communication patterns. The insect-like Zenth had exceptional mathematical abilities, allowing them to identify patterns that even Ross's trained eye had missed. "I think I see it," Ross said, excitement in his voice. "There's a 5-second delay between a field commander's request and the approval from their hierarchy." The Zenth scientist clicked its mandibles in agreement. "All Gori decisions require hierarchical approval. Field commanders cannot adapt without authorization." Ross looked up from the data. "That's a critical weakness. In battle, 5 seconds is an eternity." On the 4th day after the battle, Communications Officer Nicole Davis intercepted an urgent message from a Gori outpost. She immediately brought it to Captain Miller, who was meeting with the Alliance leadership. "They're calling for reinforcements, sir," Davis reported. "They've detected unusual activity in the asteroid belt and suspect we're hiding here." Tekla, now serving as the unofficial leader of the Valori refugees, looked alarmed. "How long do we have?" "Based on the message, their scout ships will begin a systematic search in approximately 20 hours, Davis answered. Miller turned to the gathered alien representatives. "We need to move our people to the backup location immediately." The evacuation began within the hour. The Defiant, despite its damaged state, would lead a group of refugee ships to a distant moon that the Medusans had identified as a potential sanctuary. But someone needed to stay behind to make the Gori believe the asteroid base was still occupied. "I'll remain with a small team," Lieutenant Wright volunteered. "We can use the explosive charges to create distractions and lead them away from your escape route." Miller shook his head. "Too risky. I need you with the main group." With respect, Captain, this is what I'm trained for. After careful consideration, Miller approved the plan. Wright would stay behind with 5 volunteers, 2 humans, an Arctarian, and 2 Valori, to create the illusion that the base was still active while the refugees escaped. As the evacuation ships prepared to depart, Miller pulled Wright aside. You have 24 hours. After that, you get yourselves out, regardless of whether the deception is still working. That's an order. Wright nodded. Understood, sir. The Defiant led the refugee fleet away from the asteroid belt, using the knowledge of their alien allies to navigate through sensor blind spots. On the bridge, Miller watched the tactical display with concern. Any sign of pursuit? He asked. Nothing yet, Davis replied. Lieutenant Wright's team must be succeeding in their diversion. 20 hours into their journey, as they approached the sanctuary moon, Davis received an encrypted transmission. Sir, it's from Lieutenant Wright. Miller felt relief wash over him. Put it through. Wright's voice came through with static interference. Mission accomplished, Captain. The Gory took the bait. They deployed 6 ships to the asteroid belt. We've led them on a merry chase through the tunnels. We're on our way to the rendezvous point now. Well done, Lieutenant, Miller said. We'll be waiting for you. As the refugee fleet approached the sanctuary moon, Miller took a moment to appreciate what they had accomplished. In just over a week, humans had gone from an unknown species to the leaders of the first significant rebellion against the Gory Confederacy in 5 centuries. On Earth, Admiral William Turner stood before the United Earth Alliance Parliament, presenting Captain Miller's reports. The chamber was filled with representatives from every nation, all watching the images of the alien species now allied with humanity. Ladies and gentlemen, Turner said gravely, what began as a diplomatic mission has revealed a galactic tyranny. Captain Miller and the crew of the Defiant have made a stand alongside these oppressed peoples. The question before us now is simple. Will humanity turn its back on them, or will we honor the alliance that has been forged? The debate was brief. Humanity's history had taught harsh lessons about turning away from injustice. The vote was unanimous. Earth would stand with its new allies against the Gory Confederacy. As Turner left the chamber, his aide approached with an update. Sir, the 5 ships are ready for deployment. Crews are being briefed now. Turner nodded. Tell them to prepare for immediate departure and send a message to Captain Miller. Tell him help is coming and to hold on at all costs. Back in the bow, Kepler system. Miller stood with Tekla and the other alien leaders watching as refugees established a new home on the sanctuary moon. The rebellion had begun, sparked by a single human warship that had entered the system and changed everything. Forever. 6 months passed since the USS Defiant first entered the Kepler system. What began as a chance encounter had grown into a full-scale rebellion against the Gory Confederacy. The sanctuary moon, once barren and uninhabited, now bustled with activity. As a makeshift headquarters for the Alliance of Liberated Species, Admiral Frank Miller, recently promoted from captain, stood at the viewport of the newly constructed command center. Through the reinforced glass, he could see 7 human warships in orbit around the moon, each commanding a fleet of allied vessels from various species. The reinforcements from Earth had arrived 2 months ago, bringing much-needed supplies, weapons, and fresh personnel. Admiral, the representatives are ready for you, Lieutenant Wright said, approaching with a datapad in hand. He too had been promoted, now serving as Miller's chief of security. Miller nodded and turned away from the viewport. Thank you, Sam. Any word from the Arctarian fleet? They successfully liberated the mining colony in the Proxima system. Minimal casualties, maximum impact, just as you taught them. Miller allowed himself a small smile. The tactical doctrines developed by humanity over centuries of conflict on Earth had proven remarkably effective against the rigid, gory military structure. By delegating authority to field commanders and encouraging adaptive strategies, the Alliance forces had won a series of victories that shocked the Gory High Command. In the main conference room, representatives from 23 different species waited around a large circular table. Some, like the Valori and Arctarians, had been part of the Alliance from the beginning. Others were more recent additions, species that had seized the opportunity to break free from gory control as the rebellion spread. Tekla, now serving as the prime representative of the Velori people, greeted Miller warmly. "Admiral, we have good news from the former gory throne world in the Centauri system. The planetary defense grid has been reprogrammed to recognize Alliance ships." Miller took his seat at the table. "Excellent. And the civilian population?" "Adjusting well," replied a tall insect-like Zenth representative. "Many had never known freedom. Your human diplomatic officers have been most helpful in establishing new governance structures." The meeting continued with reports from various fronts. The gory confederacy, once spanning dozens of star systems, had been pushed back to their core worlds. Their rigid hierarchy, once a strength in administering their vast empire, had proven catastrophically vulnerable to the human approach of delegating authority to field commanders. "What about the reports of the gory building a new fleet?" asked a Medusan representative, her furry face creased with worry. Science Officer Ross, now serving as the Alliance's chief intelligence analyst, activated a holographic display in the center of the table. "Our scouts confirmed it. They're constructing what appears to be a last-ditch effort, a fleet 3 times larger than anything we've faced before." "How long do we have?" Miller asked. "Based on current production rates, 4 months at most," Ross replied. "Communications." Officer Nicole Davis entered the room, her expression urgent. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Altrusian Concordat." A murmur spread through the room. The Altrusians were one of the elder races of the galaxy, a civilization millions of years old that had long ago withdrawn from active participation in galactic politics. They had observed the human-led rebellion with interest, but had not intervened. "Put it through," Miller ordered. The holographic display shifted to show a tall, slender being with silvery skin and eyes that seemed to contain swirling galaxies. "Admiral Miller," the Altrusian spoke in a melodious voice. "I am Observer Thalon. Of the Altrusian Concordat, I request permission to visit your headquarters." Miller exchanged glances with Tekla and the other representatives before responding. "Permission granted, Observer Thalon. We welcome the interest of the Altrusian Concordat." After the transmission ended, the room erupted in excited conversation. The Altrusians rarely involved themselves in the affairs of younger species. Their interest suggested that the rebellion had gained significance beyond just regional politics. 3 days later, Observer Thalon arrived in a small, crystalline ship that seemed to bend light around it. Miller, along with representatives from the core Alliance species, greeted the Altrusian in the main landing bay. Thalon towered over even the tallest aliens present, standing nearly 8 feet tall. "Admiral Miller," the Altrusian said, bowing slightly. "In our long memory, we have seen empires rise and fall, but never have we witnessed such rapid change catalyzed by a single species." "We only provided the spark," Miller replied modestly. "These people had the courage to fight for their freedom." "A spark, yes," Thalon agreed, "but an essential one. The gory confederacy has been a stagnant force in this sector for too long. Your arrival has restored balance to the natural order of civilizational growth." In the command center, Thalon observed the tactical displays showing the current state of the conflict. "You have achieved much in a short time, but the gory are not yet defeated." "We know," Miller acknowledged. "They're building a new fleet larger than anything we've faced." Thalon's galactic eyes seemed to look beyond the present moment. "The Altrusian Concordat does not intervene in conflicts between younger species. However, we can share knowledge. The gory rose to power using technology they discovered in ancient ruins, technology they never fully understood. This has been both their strength and their limitation. The Altrusian provided technical data that revealed fundamental weaknesses in gory shield harmonics and power distribution systems, weaknesses that the Alliance could exploit in the coming conflict." While the diplomatic meetings continued, Chief Engineer Olivia Garcia worked in a massive hangar bay alongside engineers from multiple species. Together, they were putting the finishing touches on a new vessel, the first ship designed collaboratively by humans and their allies. "Try the power coupling again," Garcia called out to a Velori technician. The engineer made an adjustment and The ship's systems hummed to life. Garcia smiled with satisfaction. The vessel combined Valori energy systems, Zenth stealth technology, Arctarian defensive shields, and human tactical systems. It represented not just a technological achievement, but a symbol of what cooperation between different species could accomplish. "She's ready for her trial run," Garcia announced as Admiral Miller entered the hangar bay. Miller walked around the sleek ship, admiring its lines. "Does she have a name yet?" "We've been calling her Unity," Garcia replied. "Seemed appropriate, as you..." Preparations for the Unity's maiden voyage were underway. An urgent alert came through from the long-range sensor network. A massive Gori fleet had departed from their homeworld, much earlier than intelligence had predicted. Miller immediately called an emergency meeting of the Alliance leadership. "The Gori are making their move. Our intelligence suggests this is nearly every ship they have left. They're committing everything to this attack." "How many vessels?" asked an Arctarian commander. "Over 300, Ross replied grimly. 10 times larger than any fleet we've faced before." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Even with all their victories, the Alliance had fewer than 100 warships, plus support vessels. "They're desperate," Miller said after a moment. "They're throwing everything at us because they know if they don't crush this rebellion now, they never will." Tekla looked around at the assembled representatives. "What do we do, Admiral?" Miller straightened his uniform and looked at each face. In turn, human and alien alike, all united by a common cause. "We do what we've done from the beginning. We adapt. We surprise them. We use their rigid thinking against them." He walked to the tactical display and began outlining his plan. Instead of retreating in the face of overwhelming numbers, the Alliance would meet the Gori head-on. As the meeting concluded and the representatives dispersed to prepare their forces, Observer Thalon approached Miller privately. "You are about to face the most significant test of your leadership, Admiral," the Altrusian said. "The outcome of this battle will reshape this sector of the galaxy for millennia to come." Miller nodded. "No pressure, then." Thalon's expression remained serene. "In all our observations of younger species, we have found few as adaptable as humans. It is your greatest strength." As the Altrusian departed, Miller returned to the main bridge of the Unity, which would serve as his flagship for the coming battle. Around him, a crew of humans and aliens worked together seamlessly, preparing for the conflict ahead. The tactical officer, a young human lieutenant, called out, "Gori fleet will be in range in 6 hours, Admiral." Miller took his place in the command chair, feeling the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. What had begun with a single human warship entering an alien system had grown into a movement that would determine the fate of countless beings. Across dozens of worlds, he opened a channel to the entire Alliance fleet. "This is Admiral Miller. In a few hours we face the greatest challenge of our campaign. The Gori are coming with everything they have left. They expect us to retreat or be overwhelmed. Instead, we will show them what happens when free peoples stand together." Miller paused, looking around at his mixed crew, human determination blended with alien expertise. "Brace for impact," he said firmly, "and prepare to make history."